These are 10 of the most notorious unsolved crimes in history. Not because no one searched, but because the truth refused to surface. And we start immediately with number 1. In December 1996, a quiet neighborhood in Boulder, Colorado, became the center of one of America's most disturbing unsolved cases. 6-year-old JonBenét Ramsey was reported missing from her home on Christmas morning. A handwritten ransom note was found inside the house. Hours later, her body was discovered in the basement. From the very beginning, the investigation was compromised. The crime scene was not secured properly. Friends and family were allowed inside the home. Potential evidence was disturbed. The child had suffered severe injuries. The circumstances did not match a typical abduction. Suspicion turned inward. Public attention focused on the parents, then shifted toward the possibility of an intruder. DNA evidence was collected, analyzed, and debated, but no explanation fully aligned with the facts. The ransom note raised more questions than answers. Its length, its tone, its familiarity. Over the years, countless theories emerged. None could be proven beyond doubt. What keeps this case unresolved is not the absence of suspects. It is the presence of contradictions, evidence that points in different directions, mistakes that can never be undone. Decades later, JonBenét Ramsey's death remains unsolved. Not because no one searched for the truth, but because the truth was buried beneath confusion from the very first day. In February 1957, a grim discovery was made in a wooded area of Philadelphia. Inside a cardboard box lay the body of a young boy. He was malnourished, unidentified, and alone. No missing person report matched him. Police launched one of the largest identification efforts in the city's history. His image was distributed nationwide. Posters were displayed, tips flooded in, none led to answers. For decades, the child became known only as the boy in the box, a symbol of lost identity and unanswered justice. The investigation uncovered signs of long-term mistreatment, but no clear suspect could be confirmed. No family came forward to claim him. As years passed, the case grew cold. Then, in 2022, forensic genealogy changed part of the story. DNA analysis finally gave the boy a name: Joseph Augustus Zarelli. His identity was restored, but the mystery was not solved. Who was responsible for his death remains unknown. What keeps this case unresolved is its silence. There are no witnesses, no confessions, no clear trail, only a name that arrived decades too late. Joseph's story remains one of the most haunting reminders that even when technology advances, justice can still remain out of reach. In July 1975, one of the most powerful labor leaders in America vanished without a trace. Jimmy Hoffa, president of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, was a man surrounded by influence, enemies, and organized crime. For years, his name had been tied to corruption, power struggles, and the underworld. On July 30th, 1975, Hoffa left his home in Michigan to attend a meeting. He was last seen outside a restaurant in suburban Detroit. He never returned. His car was found later that day. There were no signs of a struggle, no blood, no witnesses. Almost immediately, suspicion turned toward the mafia. Hoffa had long-standing ties to organized crime. He had also made powerful enemies by attempting to regain control of the Union. Theories multiplied. Some believed he was murdered and buried in a remote location. Others claimed his body was concealed in concrete. Many alleged the meeting itself was a trap. Despite decades of investigations, searches, and confessions that led nowhere, Hoffa's body was never found. What keeps the case unresolved is its simplicity. No physical evidence, no confirmed witnesses, no crime scene. Jimmy Hoffa did not just disappear, he was erased. And nearly 50 years later, the question remains unanswered. Where did Jimmy Hoffa go? In September 1982, a series of sudden deaths shocked the United States. 7 people in the Chicago area died after taking extra-strength Tylenol capsules. They had no connection to one another. Their only link was the medication. Investigators quickly discovered the cause. The capsules had been laced with a lethal poison. Panic spread nationwide. Stores pulled Tylenol from their shelves. Public warnings were issued. Everyday medicine became a source of fear. Authorities determined that the tampering did not occur at the factory. The poison had been introduced at the retail level after the products were already on store shelves. That detail changed everything. It meant the killer could have been anyone, anywhere, at any time. A massive investigation followed. Thousands of leads were pursued. Several suspects were considered, including a man who sent letters attempting to extort the manufacturer. No one was ever charged. What keeps the case unresolved is its anonymity. No clear motive, no consistent pattern, no identifiable target, yet the impact was permanent. The case led to major changes in how medicine is packaged, including tamper-resistant seals that are still used today. The Tylenol murders were never solved, but they reshaped consumer safety forever, a crime without a face, and a reminder that fear can be introduced into the most ordinary parts of life. In the late 1960s, Northern California was shaken by a series of murders unlike anything seen before. The victims were young couples. The locations were isolated roads, quiet parks, and city streets, and the killer did not try to remain invisible. After the first confirmed attacks in 1968, letters began arriving at major newspapers. They were written by the killer himself. He called himself Zodiac. The letters described the crimes in detail. They mocked the police. They included complex ciphers, some of which were later decoded. The message was clear. This was not just murder, it was a performance. Zodiac claimed responsibility for at least 5 killings, though he suggested the true number was higher. Some victims survived and described a man who appeared calm, controlled, almost detached. Despite one of the largest investigations in American history, no suspect was ever definitively identified. Dozens were questioned. Several were considered strong candidates. None could be proven guilty. Over time, the letters stopped. The killings ended. The man behind the name disappeared. What keeps the case unresolved is not a lack of effort. It is the absence of certainty. No confirmed identity. No final arrest. Only symbols, messages, and unanswered questions. The Zodiac Killer did not just take lives. He left behind a mystery designed to endure. In January 1947, Los Angeles woke up to a crime that would haunt the city for generations. The body of Elizabeth Short, a 22-year-old woman, was discovered in a vacant lot. The scene was deliberate, calculated, and deeply unsettling. Her body had been carefully positioned. There was no blood at the scene, no sign of a struggle. The brutality of the crime shocked even seasoned investigators. Elizabeth Short had come to Hollywood with ambitions of success. Instead, her death became a media spectacle. Newspapers quickly gave her a name, the Black Dahlia. The investigation moved fast, but not cleanly. Hundreds of tips flooded in, false confessions multiplied. The press published details that should never have been public. Potential evidence was compromised early. Over the years, dozens of murders were suspected. Doctors, artists, acquaintances, strangers. None could be conclusively linked to the crime. What keeps the case unsolved is not a lack of theories. It is the absence of proof. No weapon was recovered. No witness could place a suspect at the scene. And critical forensic opportunities were lost forever. More than 70 years later, the Black Dahlia case remains open. Not because the truth is hidden, but because it may have vanished the moment the investigation began. Between 1918 and 1919, New Orleans was gripped by fear. A series of nighttime attacks targeted residents inside their own homes. The weapon was always the same: an axe. In many cases, the attacker used an axe found inside the victim's house. There were no forced entries, no witnesses. Victims were struck while they slept. What made the case even more unsettling was the killer's behavior outside the crimes. In 1919, newspapers received a letter claiming to be from the murderer himself. The writer called himself the Axeman. In the letter, he announced a specific night when he would strike again, but he also made a strange promise. Anyone playing jazz music in their home would be spared. The city reacted immediately. Jazz filled the streets. Bands played through the night. The homes that were usually silent were filled with music. That night, no murders were reported. Soon after, the attack stopped entirely. No suspect was ever arrested. No identity confirmed. What keeps the Axeman case unresolved is not just the lack of evidence, it is the absence of logic, no clear motive, no consistent victim profile, and a disappearance as sudden as the violence itself. The Axeman did not just terrorize a city, he left behind a mystery that blended violence, culture, and fear into a legend that still echoes through New Orleans today. In November 1970, hikers in western Norway made a disturbing discovery. In a remote valley near Bergen, later known as Isdal, they found the burned body of a woman. There were no identification documents, no wallet, no personal information. Everything that could reveal who she was had been removed. The investigation quickly uncovered strange details. Nearby suitcases contained wigs, sunglasses, and clothing with all labels cut out. Notes written in coded symbols were found among her belongings. Witnesses later reported seeing the woman traveling across Europe under multiple false names. She stayed in hotels, changed appearances, met with unknown men. An autopsy revealed she had ingested pills and alcohol before her death. But the condition of her body suggested fire played a role as well. Authorities ruled the death a suicide. Few believed it. The pattern of false identities, coded notes, and constant movement raised suspicions of espionage during the Cold War. Yet no intelligence agency ever acknowledged knowing her. No family came forward. No missing person matched her description. More than 50 years later, the woman remains unidentified. What keeps this case unresolved is not a lack of clues, but the absence of context. Every detail exists, but none of them explain who she was. The Isdal Woman remains a ghost in history, present everywhere and known nowhere. In March 1922, a remote farmstead in southern Germany became the site of one of Europe's most disturbing unsolved crimes. The farm, known as Hinterkaifeck, was home to 6 people. Days passed before neighbors grew suspicious. When they finally entered the property, every resident was dead. The victims had been killed one by one, lured into the barn, struck with a farming tool. What investigators discovered next made the case even more unsettling. Footprints in the snow led toward the house. None led away. Food had been eaten after the murders. Animals had been fed. Someone appeared to have remained on the farm for days. There were signs the family had felt watched even before the killings. Strange noises, missing keys, footsteps in the attic. Dozens of suspects were questioned over the years. Neighbors, former employees, strangers. None could be proven guilty. What keeps the Hinterkaifeck case unresolved is its patience. This was not a crime of impulse. It was planned, controlled. Nearly a century later, the identity of the killer remains unknown. The farm was eventually demolished. But the mystery never disappeared, because somewhere in those quiet fields, someone committed 6 murders and simply walked away. In May 2007, a family vacation in southern Portugal turned into an international mystery. 3-year-old Madeleine McCann disappeared from a holiday apartment in the town of Praia da Luz. She had been left sleeping while her parents dined nearby. When they returned, she was gone. There were no clear signs of forced entry, no witnesses who saw her leave, only an open window and a shattered sense of certainty. The investigation moved quickly, but not cleanly. Early mistakes complicated the case. Key evidence was questioned. Public attention became relentless. Suspicion shifted repeatedly, from unknown intruders to possible abduction networks to the parents themselves. Years passed. In 2020, German authorities identified a suspect connected to violent crimes in the area at the time of Madeleine's disappearance. Yet no charges were filed directly related to her case. No body was ever found. No definitive proof emerged. What keeps the case unresolved is its absence. No confirmed crime scene, no final narrative, only fragments of possibility. The disappearance of Madeleine McCann remains one of the most widely known unsolved cases in the world, not because of what is known, but because of what is missing. These cases remain unresolved not because they were forgotten, but because the answers were never found. If this video helped you understand the darker side of history, leave a like. And if you want more real cases, real mysteries, and forgotten stories, subscribe to the channel. There are still many files left in the dark.